So it will be on our YouTube channel, and then it will also reside on Facebook. So, and I'll try to remember to tell people at the end, if they join us late, that they can go back to either one of those two to see it from the beginning in case they missed anything, because sometimes people jump in at different times. So I'm Julie Slavinsky. I'm the director of events at Warwick's. And we're so excited to have this conversation tonight. So I just have a couple little things to give Facebook a little bit of time to talk to you a little bit about Warwick's and what's going to happen tonight. And then we'll toss it over to Jillian and Laura for their conversation. So for those that don't know, Warwick's is located in La Jolla, San Diego, California. And while we're not the oldest bookstore in the country, we're actually the oldest continuously family-owned bookstore in the country. So Nancy Warwick is the 4th generation owner. It's never left the family. And so her great-great-grandfather started it, my little sign up there says 1896. And we've been in, started in Minnesota, been in La Jolla since the 30s, and in the building that we're at since the 50s. So we're kind of a little bit of a San Diego institution. So since the shutdown, we reopened the store back in May and have been doing all the protocol to keep you safe, masks, social distancing. But I always like to say, any way that there is to get a book, you can get it from Warwick. So I will be putting both Laura and Jillian's book into the comment section tonight. So you can easily just click that and order it. We can ship it to you. If you live in the San Diego area and you are so inclined, come by and see us. And there's lots of other things to look at. There's a great other side of the store. I think, Laura, you've been in the store many times. There's a whole other side that has gifts and jewelry and fine pens. So we're kind of in that gift giving season. So if you are so inclined, come by and see us. But again, we can ship you that book. Jillian and Laura are going to talk for about 35 minutes-ish, something like that. There is a way for you to participate. If you have a question for either of the authors, you can put that into the comment section. We're not going to do live questions. I'm going to be bringing the questions in after they're done with their conversation. So, but make sure that you put any questions in that you might have for either of the authors. So with that, I think that we've given Facebook enough time to let people know that we're here. So let me do a little bit of an intro. So Jillian Cantor and Laura Taylor Namey are here tonight to talk about their new books, Jillian's The Code for Love and Heartbreak, and Laura's A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow. So Jillian Cantor has a BA in English from Penn State University and an MFA from the University of Arizona. She's the author of award-winning novels for teens and adults, including most recently the critically acclaimed The Lost Letter, The Hours Count, and Margot. Born and raised in a suburb of Philadelphia, Jillian currently lives in Arizona with her husband and 2 sons. And Laura Taylor Namey is a Cuban-American Californian who can be found haunting her favorite coffee shops, drooling over leather jackets, and wishing she was in London or Paris. Boy, probably now more than ever. Hard to get there, though. She lives in San Diego with her husband, 2 superstar children, which all of us are with her, and her beloved miniature schnauzer Muse. So with that, you 2 ladies have a great conversation, and we'll see you in about 30 minutes or so.
Well, thank you.
Hey, thank you. All right, so I know Laura and I both have read each other's books, and I'm a huge fan of Laura's, I have to say, and hers sitting right here.
Here, we're going to do.
And Laura's had a ton of good news in the last week, right? You were the Reese Witherspoon pick, and your book hit the New York Times list, which is super exciting.
Thank
so
you.
Congrats.
Thank you very much.
But we've emailed a bunch about sort of things in common about our books, right?
Yes.
So maybe we should both talk a little bit first about what our books are about and what inspired us. And do you want to start?
Hey, I can. Okay. Yeah, Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow is about 17-year-old Lila Reyes, and Lila is a Miami teen Cuban baker from a Cuban family, and she lives in West Dade, Miami. And just before Lila is about to graduate high school, she suffers a season of 3 really tough, heartbreaking losses. And her family fears that she's not dealing with these well. She's starting to kind of collapse, and everything is crumbling around her. And they worry for her mental health and even her physical health, that she's just not doing okay. And she's putting on a brave front and putting up walls and not communicating with her family, something that she would normally do. And so they, her mother and her sister and father, decide to send Lila away to their family friends in Winchester, England. And her Cuban mother decides, well, my daughter is running around and she's all aflame and hot, and what is the coldest place I can think of in June to send my daughter to cool her down? And that's Winchester, England in June. And if you've ever been to England in the summer, I haven't. I was in sweaters and beanies and a scarf and boots in June in England. So it probably is one of the coldest places to go in June. But anyway, Lila does not want to go to England, though. She is ready to take over her bakery with her sister Pilar and become this bakery heiress and head chef and do all the planning. And she does not, the last place she wants to be is 4,000 miles away in this little town that she's never been to. And she very much gets there against her will. When Lila gets to England, though, England is full of surprises. And after a few days of spite packing and whining and not venturing out, she does begin to find a new place to cook and some new friends and perhaps even a new love. And she has to make some very difficult decisions that challenge everything she's been brought up to believe about her culture and her heritage, and this mantle of legacy, being the daughter of a Cuban daughter of a Cuban family with a future that she thought she had all planned out. Turns out she doesn't. But that's what Cuban Girl is about. And, yeah.
So the code for love and heartbreak. My main character, Emma, could not be more different than Lila. I was thinking this as I was reading. Your character is very outgoing and just like very vibrant, and people feed her. And my main character, Emma, is a math genius, and numbers make sense to her, but people don't. So the code for love and heartbreak is actually a modern day high school retelling of Jane Austen's Emma. But my Emma is the president of her coding club. And she's very good with math, very good with numbers, very good with coding, but she doesn't, she's not good with people. And she always says math makes sense and people don't. And so she has an older sister. At the beginning of the book, her older sister leaves for college. And then Emma suddenly realizes that her sister was her entire social life. She just did everything her sister wanted her to do. And now she's all alone there for her senior year. But she is the co-president of her coding club along with George. And so she decides that in order to try and win the state competition, she can make an app to basically code love for her classmates and matchmake her classmates. So it's very much the plot of Jane Austen's Emma, but it unfolds in this high school in New Jersey where Emma's using math to try to match her classmates. And of course, there's disastrous results, and she has some disastrous results of her own when she starts to have some romantic feelings that don't line up with her math. So that's the basic gist of the story.
I love that. I love it. My Lila only uses recipe math. So I thought that was funny because I was reading yours and it's like Lila's like, what even is this? She can measure and do this, but it's her sister Pilar that's a business owner that she always defers to.
Right.
That I'm like, that is so funny. But why did you choose coding and math as Emma's thing?
So I know nothing about coding and I'm terrible at math. so I have to put that out there. But I had the idea for the book. I think I have two teenage sons, and they're both very good at math and good at coding. And they have been really into robotics for years. So I've spent so many years watching robotics competitions and robotics matches and like watching these amazing kids program the robot. And I'm kind of in awe of them. And so I wanted to write about, definitely my characters are fictional and are not, my kids or my kids' friends, but I wanted to write about these kids that I see who are very, very smart, so amazing at what they do, but maybe aren't always communicating in the best way. And so I kind of wanted to write about that group of high school kids. So that was my inspiration. My husband is a software developer, so he does know how to code. So I had him do I wrote the first draft of the book and I was like, insert coding thing here. And then he was actually the first person who read it. And he was like, well, this is what they would do. And actually my older son helped a lot too, just to tell me like, okay, this is how they would communicate and this is how they would work on things in the group. And of course, any mistakes in the book are totally mine because I probably didn't understand half of what they were saying to me. But they definitely helped me with the tech stuff. But that was not my experience in high school. I stopped math as soon as I could in 11th grade. I never took calculus.
Yeah. What is that?
But like, similar to Emma, I was very invested in school. It was just, different. It was more like English and music and arts. And I was sort of like a very, very serious student, and I didn't really have, time for social things. And so I related to that part of her, but not the math part. And I think I asked you, because we were emailing, I said, one of my favorite parts about your book was the food. I was so hungry when I was reading it. I wanted to eat
everybody says that. I hear that. Yeah. All day.
And so I mean, I know I asked you this over email, but I was curious if you were also a baker, or just like, where you came up with all the food that she's making in the book.
I'm a consumer.
Yeah, I'm a consumer as well.
No, and this is the funny thing. Like, I come from this huge Cuban family, and I come from a line of extraordinary chefs and cooks and bakers and makers of all things delicious Cuban foods, and all, every single dish in Cuban Girl and everything is something that I ate growing up in my big Cuban family. Think of my big fat Greek wedding Cuban style. They're always feeding you, and if they're not feeding you, they're preparing to feed you tomorrow. And
I need to come to your house.
You really do. Yes. And I know how to make some of these things, and I'm capable. It's just my tias, they made all of these foods, and I just wanted to put the food is love. And if you're a Cuban, and I think this happens in many families, it's not just for Latinx families, it's not just for, it's like the emotional education and your emotional upbringing is done at the table, and it's done in the kitchen. And I thought, I'm writing a book that explores so many emotions and grief and love and joy and legacy, that's going to happen in the kitchen too. And I wanted to use that and just tribute these women and men, both, that made the things that fed me. And then in that way, I could talk about the other ways they fed me, which, was not food, but lessons and love and, everything that just builds a child and grows you and helps you come of age. So that's where the food came from.
So where did you get, I was curious, where did you get the idea, just the idea for Lila and her story?
Lila's me.
Okay.
Yeah. Lila is a combination, is kind of how I was as a teenager. Just thought I had everything all planned out, would plan and front load everything, and kind of was just like, Lila's nickname in Cuban Girl is Estrellita, which means little star. And that's, her whole community calls her that because she never stops. And she lights up her sky, and everywhere she goes, she's blazing a path, and she's got to get ahead, and she's ambitious, and she leaves others in her wake, and she just has a plan, and she's going to stick to it. But what's the risk of that? And her abuelita says, pero Nina, you're going to burn yourself out. You add too much sugar. You add yourself like too much sugar and too much heat. And you're going to burn out your boyfriend, which happens. You're going to burn out yourself if you don't watch it. So that's where it kind of came from, that whole idea of tying the food, tying to the emotion, and and using what I knew, and using, that's how I built Lila, was based on my own experience as a Cuban girl growing up, living here, but then spending a lot of time in Florida, and my own way that I used to crash and burn a lot of the times, and how I came of age that way. And there goes your book on the floor. And I kind of just put the spirit, and I had, when you're growing up, you have things to reconcile. And when you write and you make a protagonist and a main character, it's a place to put her. It's a place to put teenage me. And I don't know how much of you isn't, other than the math. I'm just curious about what you put from yourself into anyone in your book, whether it's Emma or it's her sister, or.
I'm honestly, and people have asked me this question a lot, I'm honestly more like Emma's sister, Izzy, than I am like Emma. I mean, although I'm definitely, I'm an introvert like Emma. That part came from me. My instinct is like to be interior and to not reach out to people. And, I always have this like small group of very close friends, and Izzy's not like that. Izzy's outgoing, but Izzy falls in love with this boy in high school, is convinced that she's going to marry him, and follows him to college. And that's what I did. And I'm still married to him 20 years later. So, that little piece of Izzy was my experience. And I'm sure my younger sister would have rolled her eyes at it just as much as Emma did when I, came home for Christmas and I couldn't see him for 5 days and felt like I was dying when I was a freshman in college. So that little tidbit was my own experience. But also Emma is she's very good at math, but she's also a very accomplished pianist. And I'm not a pianist, but I did play clarinet pretty well in high school, and that was like a big part of my life. And it's not something I've done since college at this point, so it's been a really long time, but music was really important to me in that time. I think when I was sometimes struggling to connect to people, music was something that I turned to, and Emma does that also. So that was a tidbit of myself that I put into her for sure.
Oh, I love that. I love that we
can and the ping pong with George. And I always used to play ping pong with my now husband in high school. And actually, like, he's not watching the Facebook Live, but his birthday's this weekend and I bought him a ping pong table. So yes, we're gonna put it in the backyard.
Oh, I know. I'm terrible at ping pong. It's so funny, but we have a table at back too, and my kids.
I haven't played in a really long time, so I'm sure I'm terrible now, but that was like a high school thing that I like to do. So
okay, but your book is not without food too, because there was an awful lot of pie going on there.
Yeah,
and I noticed that right away.
There was a lot of pizza in there.
There was a lot of pizza and very and this is what I think we do as authors, is we have these little motifs that run through our books, whether there's a pastelito de guayaba in my book. There's a guava pastry that changes and does all kinds of things, and it means all sorts of things, and it follows all sorts of heartbreak and love. It follows the characters around. But in yours, is like a pizza with very specific toppings, which
Emma definitely has her routines, and she's a vegetarian, and her and George are always arguing over pizza toppings, and that's sort of how they're flirting with each other, even though she doesn't realize that's what it is. I know. But I remember my high school days. It was always, going to an activity and then everyone ordering pizza. And I feel like that's all I ate in high school. So it just felt like a very high school thing to me that they were always eating pizza.
It's easy and cheap, right?
Right. Easy to order.
It shows that. And
So your book is largely set in Winchester. So did you you had mentioned you went to the UK in the summer.
Yes.
So had you spent time in the UK before? Did you go to research the book, or why the UK?
I've always been a little bit of an Anglophile. I loved Downton Abbey and all of those things, and I love the idea. I think I like the antiquity. I think I was born maybe in the wrong place. I'm not as much of a California beach girl as I am want to be in a cobblestone street in, like I said, London or Paris, bundled up, and with all that antiquity and castles. And I just like that aesthetic. Maybe I'm drawn to it. But yes, I have been to England and absolutely fell in love with it, and got to bring my children when they were a little younger. And I didn't want to come home. More than London, we kind of toured around, and I thought, I'm going to send a book here. And as writers, as a writer for me, I don't know about for you, but I like to play with opposites, and I like to play with kind of that yin and the yang. So I have Lila, who's from Miami, and I think of Miami, which is very tropical and it's colorful. There's a rhythm, there's a cultural beat. It's very diverse. The smells, the colors, the sounds are so vibrant, and they're hot. You think of that humidity, that hot rain and birds, and all of that really infuses Lila's life. And, often a way to bring out something as a writer is to then pair it with its polar opposite, and then to marry the two and have them conflict and then contrast and then meld, and ultimately in your narrative. So you think, what's the opposite of Miami? A cold, cloudy, gray sky, rain-soaked pavement, cobblestones, motorbikes in the hill, stargazing, where there's no, Miami traffic on the Palmetto. There's no, none of that South Beach flair. And I thought, this is where I'm going to place my book, because it lets me bring out Lila's Cubanness, but also it helped accomplish my goal of taking a girl who was very much thinks she's born for one place in time and one goal, and to make her a citizen of the world, and to make her realize that she's more, she can be Cuban anywhere. And she realized what it means for her to be more than just a Miami Cuban, but to be a world citizen. I needed to take her out into the world.
And I loved how she brought her version of baking, to Winchester. And there was a little bit of conflict there in the beginning, but she won everyone over.
Yeah, she does have a kitchen, has when you talk about Emma and the app mishap, all of that. Yes.
Yeah.
Lila has a kitchen mishap when she gets there, and that is so unlike her. And I think that's one of, it's like one of her first days when she's so out of her comfort zone. It's a true like fish out of water trope, done diverse, done with a Cuban flair. So, right. A fish out of water, you put them, and the kitchen is the only place she's really comfortable. And then I mess her up there and there are all kinds of awful things.
I liked that scene.
Well, I know. See, and she thinks she's, she comes in there like sliding in like, I got this. And then she just doesn't. And then the fallout is what launches her into this. All right, I need to find my bearings. I need to readjust. Yeah. And that readjusting when you're 17, 18 is how you grow. And that's how you launch a character into their own character arc and how you begin to change them. So yeah, fun. Okay, well, I need to know, Emma is one of my favorite. I'm a huge Jane Austen fan. Again, England. And Jane Austen is buried. Where is Jane Austen buried, Jillian? Do you know?
I don't know.
Winchester Cathedral.
Oh, I know. See, I didn't even know that.
I know. She's buried in Winchester. And when I found that out, I'm like, oh my goodness, how crazy is because
I love that symmetry now.
I know. So yeah, she's buried in Winchester Cathedral, which is in my book. But I'm a huge Jane Austen fan. Love Pride and Prejudice, love Emma, love Persuasion. So I want to know, I have not attempted a Jane Austen retelling. And I don't know if I ever will, but I want to know how you go about or how you went about doing this.
So I had the idea for my Emma first. I had the idea for this high school girl who's very good at math, who's terrible with people, who thinks that she can mathematically match people. And, the idea just sort of came to me and I started thinking about it. And then I thought, oh, this could be Emma, because I thought of the matchmaking aspect, but updated. So I went back and reread it after that. And then I sort of, mapped out the plot points that I wanted to keep and how I could update them and, how the different characters could come in, but how they could also be different. And I rewatched all the Emma movies and Emma miniseries, and I rewatched Clueless, which I hadn't seen in so many years, just to kind of see how they did it. So it was really, I write a lot of adult historical fiction, and that involves a lot of research. And so this is a contemporary YA. So you would think, well, it's probably not that much research, but I feel like I did just as much research going through the original and then figuring out, what to take and what to change and what to make modern. And I actually stayed pretty true to the original story, I think. I changed some of the characters a little bit, but I stayed pretty true to the original story. And that was the most fun part. This was the first time I've ever done any kind of retelling. And it was actually really, really fun. It was a different way to write a book than I had ever done before, but it was a really fun way to write a book too. And also, I love Emma. So it was just really fun to keep going back to that source material and thinking about it a lot. And then thinking about how I could tell a similar story, but in a modern way. And I have lots of, little throwbacks to the original. My Emma lives in Highbury, New Jersey, instead of Highbury. And a lot of the names are the same. And so I tried to give like little Easter eggs in there for people too, who know Emma well.
Yeah. And the relationship with her father, it had those themes.
And her father, I think, is largely similar to the original, where he's a little older, he's not in the best health, her mother's dead, and she feels like she has to take care of him. And so in the updated version, her father's a lawyer who works a lot and does end up having some health issues, and she sort of struggles with in the beginning of the book, her sister moves to California for college, and Emma really wants to go to Stanford, but she sort of struggles with what will happen to her father if both her and her sister have gone across the country. And so that's a little bit of a conflict for her in the book too.
Yeah, that is essentially something very similar that happens in my book, that Lila is across the country trying to micromanage her bakery, like on FaceTime. And she has this connection with her sister too, that they're very much, again, that yin and yang, where Pilar, her sister, is really organized and she compartmentalizes and she kind of keeps everybody going. Lila is like, runs in and is the creative and, the voice and and does all those things. And that contrast, I think, makes them, it heightens both of their relationship aspects. And
yeah, and her sister is very protective of her, and Emma's sister is as well. And so it was interesting to see how those sibling relationships played out. And I mean, I have a sister. I don't know if you have a sister. Okay, well, I felt like you did, because
I have wonderful sisters-in-laws, but not.
The sister relationship is like so unique, where you love each other but you hate each other. And I definitely tried to play that in Emma and Izzy, and I think that you did that in your book as well. So
yeah, and sometimes and I love female relationships and those close, either female friends or sister relationships, and how Lila can be very inside herself and has this walls, and Pilar can just say one word and then it opens her up, and then suddenly it's a rampage, and then it makes everything present. And that's how you bring each character forward, is by having them pick at each other, and then it reveals who they are and challenges that. So yeah.
So I love your title. And I always struggle. So I'm curious. I always struggle with titles as an author. Although The Code for Love and Heartbreak, actually, the title came to me before I realized what the book was, which has never happened to me before. So I don't have a good title story for this. I just knew this was going to be the title, and I loved the title. But I love your title, and I'm curious how you came to it, and if it was your first title.
No, it was like the 87 millionth title.
Yeah, but sometimes those are the best ones.
Well, I'm okay at titling. Both of my both of my titles. I have a book 3 coming out next year, and that is the only title that has stayed the same from day one to acquisition to edits to copy edits, everything. And that's rare. But I work with 2 critique partners every day, and as I'm writing a book, I'm talking about it with them, and we work very closely on all of our books, and we're trying to title this book. And it's because I have a lot of motifs. I have the cardigan on the front that Orion gives her. Yes, that Lila's wearing here. The gray cape is a huge motif in the book. Again, it has a lot of meaning, symbolic meaning. So I wanted that wool, the sweaters that was in the title. I couldn't to marry the wool and maybe sand and sugar maybe, and whatever. I mean, we went through so many different things. And A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow did not sell under this title. The original title was A Cuban Girl's Guide to Sweaters and Stars. And everyone liked that title. I'm going to tell you something really funny. But what happens is usually the sales and marketing team will be like, if we change it a little bit, we can help you, help us help you. And so my editor, brilliant editor, and kind of helped me get to this, because Orion Maxwell his father owns a tea business and tea shop in Winchester, England. So the tea is in there, and he's really her tour guide around. That's how they meet. He offers to kind of show her around. And so it's the word guide is kind of like that guidebook that is popular in titles now, like a field guides, to whatever, to the university, whatever. But he's actually really the guide. So he's the guide. And then a coming of age novel is kind of is expressed in the guide metaphor also. But the Tea and Tomorrow was kind of like the things that we switched out. And I mean, the tomorrow bit is that Lila always had her tomorrow planned, and that doesn't work too well for her. And so she needs a new mañana, or tomorrow. And I love there's an epigraph in the beginning by Billy Collins, who's a really famous poet and was the poet laureate. And it's mañana, by the way, does not mean tomorrow. It means not today. And I think that not today is, and I love that. I had to put that in here because.
No, did you have that before you added tomorrow to the title, or did you add?
No, I had the other one, but
okay.
When we added that, I'm always looking for something to tie it in.
Yeah.
And that and I have been a fan of Billy Collins, and I have seen him speak since I was in college, and absolutely love his poetry, love the way he uses words, and I emulate. I try, to just use this. So I'm like, okay, did he write anything on tomorrow? And when I saw this, I'm like, oh, it's over. Okay,
Yeah, that's
this
perfect.
it is, because it's like the universe, the world is telling Leela, not today. You had all of this planned, but not today. Tomorrow, and you're going to need to readjust your tomorrow. And so many teens, and I thought, okay, we settled on this. And the only thing I love this title, the only thing I don't love about this title is hashtagging it, because I'm
Yeah, it's very
hashtagging
long
it.
to type, and I've
Oh
noticed that
my
with the Code
goodness.
for Love and Heartbreak too.
Yeah, it is. And
It gets
this
very
is
wordy.
my other book, The Library of Lost Things, that's not a short title either. Okay. But it's still easier. And we call it
Yeah.
T-Lot. And we call this one, we always, my agent and I, or my friends and I, will we call this one CGG. Like CGG is on my, is on my doorstep or whatever, because we just can't bear it anymore. There's only so many times you can write
It's
this.
a lot
and
of typing. I know.
every Instagram I do, and my poor, publisher that wants to hashtag me in a cute thing they've made, I'm like,
I know. I didn't notice that until right around when my book came out, and I started hashtagging it a lot. And then I thought, I need to do shorter titles in the future.
Oh, for sure. I promise. I'm going to say this now on record. I am never writing a longer title than this. And actually, yeah.
I love it though. It's perfect. I mean, it's interesting to hear how you came to it and how you had part of it when it sold, but then you sort of adjust at the end. And I love stories like that.
It was many emails.
Yeah.
We got it. Yeah. But anyway, what's talking about next things? What's next for you, Jillian?
So I have an adult novel coming out March 23rd called Half-Life, and it's about Marie Curie, but it's kind of Marie Curie meets Sliding Doors. It's told in two parallel timelines. One is Marie's real story, which you get to see, and the other is what might have happened if she had made one different choice when she was in her early 20s. And the real life Marie was engaged to this man in Poland. She was working as a governess to earn money to move to Paris to go to the Sorbonne. And she was engaged to this man. And then his mother said that she would never amount to anything or be good enough for her son. And she made them break up. And so Marie moved to Paris. She met Pierre. She became Marie Curie. She discovered radium. She won the Nobel Prize. So my story looks at what her life would have been like if she had stayed in Poland and married this man, and then entwines that story with her real life. So it's a lot about class and gender and opportunity, but also sort of looking at how the world and science would have been different if Marie Curie hadn't have become Marie Curie. And just thinking about, as a woman, what if we made this one different choice? How would everything have changed? So it's very different from the Code for Love and Heartbreak, but that's up next for me in March. And it has a short title, Half-Life. So I'm gonna love hashtagging that one.
Oh my God, I'm jealous because I have to go for another year.
So tell, and you told me you were working on edits for your next book, right? Or a deadline.
I just turned in, it's been busy. I just turned in edits for my junior novel, which is also YA, and it is with the same publisher and editor, Atheneum Simon and Schuster. I can't tell the title or the entire premise of that one yet because it's not launched. When it's officially launched, I would say maybe about a month, but I can give some hints. This one is also a little bit of a retelling, but not fully, not as much as your book. But it is a friendship-based book with a dual timeline. Again, I'm like, oh, that sounds familiar. And I know how hard you worked then.
Yeah.
I have a 1 week present timeline and a past timeline that spans 12 years in three. It's a friendship betrayal book between a group of 3 friends. And it takes place in where I grew up, right near Warwick's, and La Jolla is in my book. All my stomping grounds in Pacific Beach and Crown Point. I put all of the places that I went and the places that I ate growing up as a San Diego beach girl in that book. So instead of, it's also a coming of age, but very much instead of with like a coming of age with a romance arc, this is a coming of age, even though there's a romance in it, but heavily, this is a friendship breakup book. So,
oh, I love that. And that'll be out next year.
It is fall 2021. Okay. So watch my social media because I will be launching that book with
and I want to know the title because now you've told us it's been the title the whole time.
Okay, so it's 4 words. It's 4 words, and I'm so excited.
Oh, that's good.
I get to hashtag. That's gonna be easy.
And hopefully a couple of them are just like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had
She's
to
not gonna
think.
tell
This
us.
is my week. Yes, I had to think. I'm like,
Is it?
we're at that point. Yeah.
Are we at that point?
But I
Okay,
will
we
tell
have
you
a
the
couple
cover
questions.
settings. Yeah.
That's well, I was going to ask both of you, and we'll get to that. But we have a couple questions coming in. So
Okay.
Amanda wants to know, she's got one for each of you. So for Jillian, you kind of answered it a little bit, which was hold on, something just popped in there. How you came up with the idea to adapt Austen for young readers. So you sort of already answered that, but she also wants to know, what is your favorite Austen spinoff or adaptation?
Okay.
I mean, I think that Bridget Jones' Diary sort of remains my favorite Austen adaptation. That's just like a book or the movie that I will reread or rewatch and brings me comfort.
So good.
I love that. Hey, do you have a favorite adaptation since we're talking Austen, Laura?
I'm such a Clueless girl.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Clueless is good too.
I want a white Jeep like that. With the
All right. And so the next question for me is for Laura. She wants to know, I wonder what Laura's favorite dessert to make is.
The easiest thing that you could, I'm trying to think. I don't make a lot of desserts. I'm the worst. Like maybe just chocolate chip cookies. I do have a really good recipe, but I don't enjoy baking the way some people use it. Like if you want to stress me out, it's ask me to bake something because I'd rather write about it. I can do these things, and I baked for my kids, and I make some of the Cuban puddings, like those are on the stove, like natilla or arroz con leche. Those are really easy. I can handle that. But my mommy, is the pie baker, cookie baker, all of that. And I mean, my tia, she made my wedding cake. I can't go.
You can't compete with that. That's hard to compete with.
Weinstock, like that level. She was that kind of baker. That inspires the abuela in my book. So it's like,
so like you said, I'd rather just be a consumer then.
I really, yeah. Sorry.
Let somebody else do that.
So bad. I'm like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Love it. And then for Jillian, is it more or less stressful to write about a real life historical person as opposed to completely fictional characters?
Oh, it's definitely more stressful to write about a real life historical person, because I feel like there's a sort of a duty to get it right. When I'm writing about someone completely fictional, it feels very freeing. I can write about whatever I want, really. I feel like it's open, but for a real life person, I really feel this like duty that I have to get the details right. And I always think about the fact that real life people, still have living relatives who could read the book. And so I really think about being respectful. And I published a book in 2015 about Ethel Rosenberg, which actually I loved that experience, and I'm really proud of that book. But I was very stressed when that book was published, and I said, I'm never writing about a real person ever again. And of course that lasted all of like 2 years, and then I was like, I'm gonna write about Marie Curie. So I think there's something that draws me to telling stories of women, maybe that aren't well known, or aspects of their story that aren't well known and haven't been told. And I love doing that, but it is more stressful for me.
Yeah. Well, because the thing is, even though it is fiction, it still there's a lot of things that have to still be true,
right,
to make it believable.
And then it's sort of negotiating between telling a story that people, want to read, that's fast paced and interesting and has plot, and also then staying true to that character's real life.
Right, because you sometimes also probably could get bogged down in the research part of it.
Yes,
you got to be careful with that.
So it's also a matter of figuring out like what to include and what not to include, and what's okay to fictionalize and what's not okay to fictionalize.
Right. So Laura, for you, you have 2 young adult novels, correct? And the third one's coming. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you ever thought about jumping into writing an adult?
Yes, and it's probably something I will do at some point. I just have a few more stories to tell.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's kind of like you do what it's working. Publishing is, it's like a service sometimes. So
Right.
you do what works for you. So right now this is doing well. We're having fun in the space and I'm
Right.
enjoying it. I'm enjoying the space a lot. And I have 2 teenagers at home and it's just fun to bounce things off of them and just to write for them and leave something for the next generation. I really like that.
Well, because I think that there's something really important about writing, and Jillian's question to you was, but I think that about, is it hard to go back and forth writing between,
Mhm.
you know, young adult and adult? But I think that just to the young adult audience, it's so important to write these stories and to share and to show, you know, like you said, it is a guide. A lot of the young adult books really are, you know, navigating through these emotions, you know, and trying to remember what that was like, you know, and helping them, even though they think that they're the first ones doing it, you know. It's so, I think that the young adult world novels are so important.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
and I have 2 teens too, which is sort of also why I went back to writing a young adult, because my kids were at the age where they were reading young adult and they were like, Mom, you wrote young adult before, now do it now that we're at this age, you know, write one for, you know, for our friends. So I
and
agree
that has
with
to be kind of fun for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
If
then
they
they'll just
read it.
deny knowing me.
I mean, do they have all, to both of you? Are their friends like super excited that it's like,
Yeah, I get that. Like from especially my daughter's friends, but yesterday my son, you know, he's older. You know, he went out. He'll go out with a couple of friends, and they meet outside. But they go in the bookstore, and they're, you know, without their masks on, and
right?
they're holding up the books, and they wanted me to, you know, they send me pictures in Target or in Barnes or something. They're like,
Right.
you know, these
That's so great.
seniors in high school with the books. And my daughter's friends are like, we love you, mommy. You know, they're so cute, like the little fangirls, and they're on TikTok making things. And I love those girls. And it's like, they just, you know, they really hit me in the heart all the
Yeah.
time. And I think of them. I love my daughter's friends so much.
Oh yeah.
They're
I mean, I have
beautiful.
2 daughters. They're adults in their late 20s and 30s, but I remember those
These
teen years were so
16-year-old.
fun. They're just
I
so,
love
yeah, I've
these
got
girls.
chills.
If
Yeah.
they're watching, I love you guys, you know.
Yeah. It's
So
really fun.
they're in my heart when I write, definitely.
And I love that you said, you know, that you have like more stories to tell. It's like,
I
that is
do. And when I
fantastic.
run
Yeah.
out of stories, then we'll do something else. But
It was
You're not going to
something.
run out of stories.
I know. It's like, you think of like a young adult is really not, I think that someone that hasn't read a lot of young adult, they think that, okay, it's a lesser form of writing and it's
Yeah.
really simplified. It is not at all. Like,
It's probably harder.
and we use the same literary devices, the same characterization techniques, the same prose quality. I mean, you can have lyrical, funny, witty, young adult that reads whatever. The only thing that's different is really just the point of view is a little honed differently.
Yeah,
It's
people
fun.
ask me that all the time.
Right.
What the difference is. And I always say it's not different. You know, writing a book, it's just the point of view is
Well,
different.
point of view, but there's probably, I mean, you have to, some things you can't take to an extreme. I think.
Well,
you have to be a
have
little
to
bit,
watch your voice, but it's not like you have to lower your writing quality.
It's not lesser than, like you said, it's
not
lesser
at
than.
all. I mean,
Right.
teens are brilliant. They have brilliant minds, and you know, you want to write so they can read up and they can uplift themselves when they pick up a book. And I don't write to teach kids things. I write to entertain and inspire and make them feel something. And if they learn something along the way, that's great. But I don't write like didactically to like, I'm going to teach you a life lesson. No, I'm just going to tell you a story, you know, and hope you stick around.
But but there's always something, there's always a good nugget in there.
Well, of course.
You know, there's always,
Well, you know, all books, we want to come out feeling something and remembering and learning something about the world or about character.
And I have to say that I read a lot of young adult books as an adult. I mean, I don't think that young adult books are just for teens. I mean, teens do read them, but
we get a lot of crossover at the store. People are, you know, people go back and forth, and there's a lot of teens who read adult books. I mean,
and my teens do that too. They go back and forth.
I did.
And I have like, you can't see, but in my office behind me, I have like piles of books that are in my to read pile. And my 13-year-old just like walks in, takes them, you know, devours it at night and brings it back. And then he's like, what else are we reading?
So good.
Yeah. I
Gotta
mean,
love
because
it.
that's the thing is that, and you probably are the same. I know, I would never censor my kids if they wanted to read, because I always
Yeah.
felt that it was like what they didn't get was going to go over their head anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there was no if there was no context for it for them. Well, this has been such a great conversation. You two are fantastic. So when Jillian, for people who want to follow you, where's the best place for them to go and to find all your social media?
If you go to jilliancantor.com, I have all my social media linked on there, my Goodreads, my events, any contact information, all my books. So just jilliancantor.com.
Perfect. And Laura, how about for you?
Same. I have LauraTaylorNamey.com, just my
Perfect.
name.com, and you can find
And
everything
there.
everything there. Yeah.
Excellent.
And come find us online. Please.
Yep. And and the engagement is so fun. That's the thing.
Yeah. Talk to us
Thank
and
you
ask
for having
questions.
us.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thank
and
you.
I was talking to somebody earlier today. I was just like, I want to bring the social media back to being social. Let's interact.
Yeah.
Let's have
I
some
will talk to you.
socializing.
Yes. If you tweet me, I will answer you. And I love that because, and especially now, and Jillian, I know you're feeling this too, is we can't get out to go and do signings or go to events or go to BookCon and fly around and go on tour. This is what we have. And so when you send us your Instagrams of your Bookstagrams where you've taken our books and put them in beautiful flat lays or done stories and tagged us, that's our way to interact with you. And we can,
I love that.
Yeah. And you're never bothering us. We love to hear that you're reading our book or, if you have questions. So
yeah, because that's the thing. It's like if the interaction is the two-way street.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, this has been wonderful. I so appreciate the time that you've spent, and hopefully next year maybe we'll be in the store and you both can come and do events at the store with us.
That'd be great.
I would love to. Let's hope for that.
Well, good night, everybody. Remember, the books are in the comment section. You can order them. And good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.